Live, great. All right, good. Good afternoon. I'm Jeremy Goldstein and would like to welcome you to the December 14th Design Review Committee meeting. This is a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, riverfront, and the new hotel overlay zoning districts. This is a mandatory review of voluntary compliance process with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from this committee. All committee members and staff are participating in person. We are streaming live to our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, either live or recorded. I will now take roll call. Christina Boer.
Here.
Catherine Nkaya.
Here.
Stephen Lee Johnson is not here. Thomas McLaughlin.
Here.
Michael McDonough.
Here.
Brian Moffitt.
Here.
Robin Rains.
Here.
And Ricardo Sejo.
Here.
Jeremy Goldstein, I'm here. As a reminder, please, to the board members to speak directly into your microphones so that the people who are not here can hear us. First item on our agenda would be approval of the minutes from the October 19th, 2023 meeting.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. The minutes are approved. Next item would be the design guidelines update.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Let me get this up real quick. I think I know most of you, but my name is David Hazard. I work in the Planning and Urban Design Department. I'm an urban designer and landscape architect, and we're here to give a brief update on the update process for the downtown design guidelines. Some of you may have seen this. We basically did the same presentation at Downtown Commission. For those that serve on that, basically we'll hear the same presentation. So the background, and I think a lot of you know these guidelines quite well and know some of the history, but essentially they were adopted as part of the 2009 Downtown Master Plan process. So they're an older document, they're incomplete, and we've been talking about updating them for quite some time now. So staff, boards and commissions, members of the public have recognized that they're in desperate need of a good update. So staff is going to lead a team, a working group, to go ahead and update these guidelines. The resources we have, again, is essentially city staff, the working group, which is mainly the one thing I want to prime you guys and hopefully get some of you excited about being part of this working group. And then we have $50,000 to hire a consultant to fill in the missing pieces, really, what staff can't do, what the working group can't do. We'll look at that consultant to try to fill in those gaps. One thing, and let me jump back, I guess, a second, $50,000, to be clear, is not enough for the consultant to do a complete overhaul. That's what we have, so this is what we're trying to work with to get as much done as we can to make these documents complete, to make them as good as they can and really fix the issues that you all been running into with trying to review projects, what we've been seeing on the street, and then also where there's gaps. There's areas that just don't exist right now in those guidelines. So this is the process and the timeline. The internal team, we're working right now to develop that process, which largely has been developed. Next, we're going to develop that working group, which is the main focus here. The working group, we're thinking, at least right now, we're going to be asking 2 members of the Design Review Committee to be a part of that, 2 members from the Downtown Commission to be a part of that, and then a member from the Historic Resources Commission to be a part of that. Once we get that group together, we're really just going to do a deep dive into the existing document, inventory analysis of those to, again, identify where are the real issues with the document, Where do we need to focus on first? Some of this work has been done, so we'll even be reviewing some of the past work. I think it was 2018, 19, somewhere around there, maybe even a little earlier, where folks really started doing this redlining of the document. So we have all that information already. We're going to re-review that and then add to that and use that as our kind of our springboard to develop a list of those items. And then we're going to look at those items and say, what can the working group accomplish? What can staff accomplish? And then what do we need a consultant for? And then that's going to drive the basically the development of the RFQ for that consultant. What type of consultant are we looking at, and what is the scope of work are we asking them to do? We're going to do that after that inventory and analysis process. Developed RFQ, hire a consultant. Public input, that will be developed based on how much we really are going to try to update and change, and how much is that really going to affect the public realm, the design of buildings. And that's somewhat going to drive how much public engagement we need to do and how much we need to get out there. But there definitely will be some form of public input that will be developed with that working group and staff. Develop the draft, finalize it, get feedback. More than likely, there will be UDO updates that are born out of this. So then we'll have to go and look at the UDO, what needs to be changed within the UDO based off of the updates to the guidelines.
Do UDO changes have to go through council?
Yes.
Any?
Yep, any UDO changes will go through council. So obviously there's a public input process there by the nature of the process itself. But yes, they will have to go through council. Questions? That's basically where we are. I will be sending out an email to the boards and commissions, basically with a quick little form with a couple questions to gauge who's interested in serving on the working group. And then I'm going to be working with the staff liaisons and potentially the chairs to make the selections of who those folks are on that working group to do that work. I'm happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda, the only item on our agenda for new business would be a formal review of 215 Haywood Street, Courtyard, Asheville, the level 2 project. New 6-story hotel building totaling 80,825 square feet.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. This is the Courtyard Asheville on 215 Haywood. You've seen this twice informally in September and October. This is now your formal review. There's a few extra slides in here because your informal review was pretty robust, and so I kind of put some transition to show you the changes that have taken place over time. That helped me in my review as well. So the existing building on site is a 1-story commercial building. It's not occupied. It's immediately adjacent to the parking kind of structure. It's just 1-floor deck that's associated with the DoubleTree Hotel. It's right at the top of Ann Street on Haywood, between Haywood and the freeway right-of-way. From a zoning compliance issue, it's outside the downtown core. Haywood at this point is not a key pedestrian street, and it's within the tallest height district. So that's kind of where it sits from a zoning perspective. So the slides I'm going to show you have a few pictures, if I could compare directly to the first submittal and then your second informal and now what the final design is, to help orient you and remind you of the discussions that you've already had. So this is the vehicle entrance location right on Haywood. The pedestrian entrance is to the right of the pillar, immediately under the word courtyard. There are bike racks in there. You can actually see them through the little window there. There's been some minor changes to the parking area. It looks like by reconfiguring some of the spots, they've been able to add some spots on the north end of the parking area, along with some additional lifts. The first floor has changed a little bit. The most discussion that you had related to the entrance to the bistro area. And so I have a call out there in the center. That's the new entrance, and the plan to the left is the original design. You can also see that there's some design changes to kind of the curved pavement area where the pedestrians will be dropped off and walk into the building. There's also been some programming changes as well within the building. These are primarily on floor 2 and 6. So I'm sorry about this one's a little jumbled. The floor 6 is the middle, floor 2 is the middle. And what used to be where the fitness area is now a meeting location, that fitness area has relocated down to the first floor. And there was originally a restaurant and terrace on the 6th floor, and that's been converted entirely to rooms. So that rooftop restaurant amenity has been eliminated. On the first floor, so there's limited landscaping requirements. There was a lot of discussion about green roof. That area has been removed from the current plan. That the green square is where it was. Right next to it is now the fitness room. It shows sliders out to a courtyard with handrails around it. Tree canopy protection will be in lieu. Street trees are compliant on the site. And our technical review of the UDO design and operational standards show compliance, as well as the hotel overlay standards. We assume the parking will be 100% valet, and the required bicycle parking is provided. From a guidelines perspective, I already provided you with my staff report on orientation, setbacks, step backs, height massing, facades, and the fenestration. Jiggle this, jiggle this. Yeah, it worked.
You're an IT professional now.
Huh?
You're an IT professional now.
I know. All right, so it's coming back.
Try
Yeah.
it. Trying something too here. That's right.
It's weird. It's only you and I.
I know, it's like us.
It doesn't like Thursdays at noon. So the fenestration plan is on the lower left, showing the percentage compliance in light blue for the upper floors. This is a close-up of the materials on the building, and then the ultimate design up there in the upper right-hand corner. Here is the elevation, or the evolution of the entrance. Upper left is the original plans, second plan set below, and then what's before you today is the larger picture to the right. This is the aerial view from the like above the highway. Upper left, again, first submittal, second submittal, and then what we're looking at today on the right, you can see the changes in the design, a lot of the movement of brick areas per the committee's comments at the last meeting. And then an aerial perspective from the city side, showing again that the facade and the change in the colors and the materials and the relocation. One of the prime kind of change in this facade is kind of the removal or de-emphasis of that tower component that we were discussing at the last meeting. And then here's a close-up of the entrance for you. I only had the second submittal, so that was the second submittal, and then this is the larger picture is today's submittal. This is the process. The applicant, we shepherded the project through the Downtown Commission. I supplied you with some of their comments. Technical Review Committee approved it in October. Your process tonight or today, and then from here, the applicant will go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a ministerial review, and then finally, final TRC, and then they can move forward with the permitting process. Based on, and I forgot to put that last slide in, based on our review, we find that the application is technically compliant, and obviously we look forward to your discussion. Questions of me?
There's only, you had a couple little things in your report. They hadn't submitted anything on trash. Have they come back to you with anything since you submitted your report? I can't find it right now.
No, and you're right. That's I think that in one of the other meetings we talked about that potentially being off-site, and maybe the applicant can provide that. There was some changes to this ground level, and I don't think that included that. The trash management, waste management?
Yeah, so the.
Thank you. Yeah, please speak into the microphone.
Sure, thank you. My name is Bill Zerong. I'm a principal with Studio Z Architecture. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today. Yeah, in regard to the waste management, so it is the owner of, or the developer of this project is the developer of the adjacent, I guess now it is.
Doubletree.
Yeah, it was a Hyatt. And so their plan is to use what they've got on that site, that, dumpster and everything. We had a trash collection room, and we would transport it over there. And so they would get whatever legal easements they needed on the site so that, should he ever sell property or something that is guaranteed.
And I'm assuming the mechanical equipment will be on the roof and is already shown as screened?
It would be screened,
Yeah,
yes.
it's-
Yeah,
and
we
current
haven't
design
gotten,
elements.
yes, yes. We haven't done full design on it yet, so we don't know exact size of the makeup air units and those kinds of things. But yeah, the intent is that it's be screened. And we've done some, they're not all in the presentation, but we've done site view studies. We can do it from the street, we can do it from the adjacent properties, and we'll know what needs to be screened.
You have an existing parapet now, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so I guess kind of, this is something Mr. McDonough has kind of brought up in the past. Basically, staff, if that increases substantially, if they have to increase the size of the parapet substantially from what's shown in the drawings today, and substantially would mean more than a foot, I think, changing the proportions of that parapet, I think it would, maybe we would, and I'm just throwing this out as a thought, maybe we would take another look at it, if that makes sense.
Are you referring to the
If you
extent
have
that
to-
the parapet is the screen?
Yeah, if the parapet is going to be revised to be the screen, at that point, sometimes what we've seen is that they'll have the parapet as the screening element, and then it comes up and they flip the cooling tower and it's standing tall, and so suddenly
Sure.
the parapet gets 6 feet taller, and then everybody's like, whoa, I didn't know that was what we were doing.
Yeah, I think at that point, that could warrant a revised review by you all.
Okay.
So I think we have to see it to see if it's
Yeah.
substantially compliant. If it's not,
But if it's screening that's set back from in the parapet and from the street, you're not seeing that, it's not materially affecting the design of the building, I don't know that it would need to come back through DRC.
Is there specific criteria then that we would want to factor, say, if it's visible, 1,000 feet away, street level, or something that we would need to make those adjustments? I guess that would be the first question I would
Yeah.
ask, how we should look at it as we develop it. And the second thought is, what we often do is we will do sort of a prefab screen immediately around the equipment, so it doesn't change the architecture, and then the screen is painted a
Right.
color that as much as possible disappears into the sky or something like that. So we would, as a means to avoid changing the architectural parapet.
right. I think that would be within the confines of any approval. That kind of screening element would just be a detail at that point.
Mhm.
I think Brian's has a good point, though, that if it's, if the screening is on the actual facade parapet and it's substantial, then that does affect the design of the building.
It does. As far, I hesitate to get into the, 1,000 feet away, that would be ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of quick thoughts. I want to back up a quick second. Did the applicant want, before we start questioning, did you want to present anything further than what staff presented?
Sure.
And then we'll go into the questions, and we'll come back to this, but I feel like we're going a little out.
Yeah, I'm respectful of your time, and I don't want to.
No, yeah, I mean, and if you don't, that's fine too. I just want to give you the opportunity.
I can just flip through a few things. If you get to that presentation,
plans?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe you just address the issues that had come up in informal on how you addressed them beyond
Sure.
what
Do you want
we
the
just heard,
elevations or
and
the
then
site plans?
I'm sure we'll have some more questions.
Sure.
Is that-
Yes, and is it just these slides
Yeah,
that
you
just
can
go
move.
through?
And it's also touchscreen.
Oh, okay, okay. Great. Yeah. Okay, so quickly, I will just go through, I know you don't probably want to get bogged down and plan things, but I'll explain a few things to you. As Clay mentioned, we did on this parking level, just change it to get now 71 spaces, which is what we believe is going to be our requirement for all direct hotel related functions. In the past, we had been asking, there was a rooftop amenity that has been eliminated from the scope of the project. So now we don't have that concern as, how we're going to handle parking there. So it's just reconfiguring, no significant architectural changes there. On the first floor, the primary change was stair one.
That's
Which-
genius.
I'm sorry?
I said that was genius, moving that stair over so.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, what we did that for, two things. One is to open up the bistro, we're trying to activate the street. And, get rid of that function, which sort of just turns it back on the street. So moved it over there, it's minimalized. We'll work through all the full code things on the landing and everything as we get through with structural engineer. But anyway, that was the one change. Stair number one also, or stair number two, came down away from the property line. So we were uptight on that property line, so that eases things a little bit there. It's a little less right on 240 there. And then the other big change was in that sort of configuration of that bistro, which is a typical hotel program for the brand, but we're sort of reimagining it so that it is going to be a public amenity, invite folks off the street. The rest of the first floor changed programmatically, some life safety concerns as we were dealing with
Bill,
brand.
before you move on, where's the front door? How does a hotel guest, they go through the bistro entrance?
No, so the main entrance is, I don't know if I can,
There is no
it's a vestibule here. So it's power doors, sliding doors, so they come to the drop-off, and it's there. They have, visually it'll be obvious, those are glass sliders. They always have brand standard signage on the door, those kinds of things. But and then it's a 90-degree turn in, and then you get into the brand required. They want to see the registration desk as they, first come in, those kinds of things. So we now have the entry to the bar bistro here in the front corner. We opened that up considerably. We also are now able to get grade on this site is a little tricky because of the way it slopes down from plan right to left. So we can get an accessible entrance directly into the bistro. Previously, they had to go in, an accessible entrance had to go through the main hotel entrance.
Are you concerned, to the right there, next to the bistro entrance, there's a concrete walk that brings you all the way to the rear of the building there?
Mm-hmm.
And that sidewalk continues out to the public sidewalk. I was just wondering if you wanted to use that planter to kind of pinch that connection so that people aren't being drawn? Do you want people to walk down?
No, it's certainly not something. It's an egress.
It's an egress.
It's an egress, so we've got to get people out
Right.
that way, and it sort of butts up against the parking deck for the DoubleTree, So I think it will be, your point
You
is.
don't want them to turn and walk in front of the bistro and then go out that kind of bistro entrance? You kind of have two draws from the public sidewalk into the property there. One is drawing you into the bistro, which is really nice.
Mhm.
The second one is kind of drawing you into a place. I'm just wondering if you might want to rethink that and not encourage people.
Which one is accessible? Or are they both?
So they're now both the hotel entry, which is interior off the vehicular drop-off. That's going to be accessible. We
But
have
at
to
the
work.
bistro, the entry that goes straight into the doors, is that accessible? And also the one to the right of the planter?
So I may be misunderstanding. That double door that you see where it's labeled bistro entry, if you can read it, that's the entry.
So you can enter between the planters.
It
That's your
doesn't slope
accessible
too
entrance.
much. It meets egress.
It will meet accessibility.
Okay.
It will meet
And
accessibility.
but the one to the right of that, like if you walked off the sidewalk plan east, is that one also accessible? Like, or is it not wide enough?
Isn't that just the egress
Yeah.
stair access to the?
That's all just part of a sidewalk, just an egress path from
And
the.
it's not accessible.
She's asking, is there a stair there, or is it just?
It's level and to slope, accessibility.
Okay. That
Yes,
was my
it's,
question.
yeah.
Okay,
So
You
what
have
we,
two parallel ADA compliant egress sidewalk?
Yeah, so what happened, this sidewalk is coming from, that keeps happening, the stair that's at the back of the property.
And they could either go back or,
Right, we have to get, yeah, the two means of egress, so that's gonna be the primary from the stair will be coming up that walk on the side. Now, one thing we could do, I mean, I hear what you're saying is a concern. You know, we could put a
You can put a gate with a panic
one-way
bar.
gate, something like that, that
That's an
at a minimum
operation.
discourages people, makes it at least an inconvenience for people to get back down
so
there.
if you were egressing from that stair, you came towards Haywood, you couldn't jog right in front of the bistro doors and then go out the same egress route?
Well, I think you could, yes.
Well, yeah, I was suggesting you might want to look at that planter and like celebrate the doors to
I see.
the bistro and not like have an equal emphasis to draw people down some bland.
I see what you're saying. So rather than have sort of two parallel sidewalks there, just create the one grand.
Yeah, you want people to go in one of them, you don't want them to go in
Understood.
the other.
Understood.
Right now, there's no hierarchy.
Okay,
It
yeah,
may-
I understand.
And
Yeah.
if you have a larger planter, then you can have more robust plant material in it too.
That's good.
Rather than just some, the
Mhm.
low things, so, I think that's a great opportunity.
Okay.
I'm just picturing people wandering back there late at night.
Yeah, and that would obviously, the hotel wouldn't be happy with that, and, you know, just for a lot of reasons. So it's a very valid point. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Okay, slip into the second floor. Again, the only major change is that the meeting, which is sort of the orange space, was moved up to the second floor. It's not a big convention center. It's primarily for hotel guests, a convenience for them if they have it. And then the outdoor lounge there, we increased the size of that. And we've lost the rooftop amenity and views, but we think we'll still get views to the lovely, you know, surroundings you have here. Third through fifth, not much change, just minor operational stuff inside. And then, as Clay mentioned, on the sixth floor, the rooftop bar is gone, and guest rooms have been added. And then the building has actually been shortened. We didn't change the room count. On the elevations, I'm sure you've seen in the package, I just wanted to call attention that we have added the material legend. So you see it's primarily the masonry and EIFS materials, trying to be a good steward where we can save construction costs. We use the masonry at the primary, you know, focal points, the front entry and facing 240. We also have added the whole design requirement checklist here and have notations adjacent as to whether it complies or is not applicable, at least in our opinion. Seen this. On the elevations, we do have, again, as Clay mentioned, the fenestration calculations, building sections. You can see what's happening there. We've added here, as required, just this is wall section and some details just to sort of show you the play, what we've got, the, you know, articulation on the building facade, particularly with that sort of lattice or coffered look we have between the masonry and the ephes.
Was there any thought of doing any kind of growing media on the little flat roof area, that two-story piece that's, you got some hotel rooms that look out on that little piece? I think it's in that section right there.
So this small little area, yeah,
And
that's,
the ones around the side and rear. I mean, there's several lids on top of lower story.
yeah. So the one thing we always will have is we're gonna have to have some mechanical equipment up there to serve some of those, especially with food service and things, we'll have hoods. We don't want that coming out the side of the building if we can avoid it. So we will have some equipment up there, screened, hopefully behind the parapets. But I mean, we can certainly consider that, you know, to soften.
I think it would be an amenity, at least, especially on Haywood Road, the hotel rooms looking out on that little
The one challenge we have, and we can look at it in plan, but then is getting maintenance up there to maintain them, because if they're not maintained, they become an eyesore
Right.
really quick. I mean, a dead plant is, will kill a look pretty quickly. So it's always the one challenge is how do we get, and we don't want to have doors from the guest rooms out there
Sure.
because that becomes
That's
a
a-
liability and,
Right.
you know.
I think in addition to it being something beautiful to look at for your guests, it's also could potentially manage the additional impervious surface that you have to deal with for stormwater. So by green roofing, I think that's what Brian is getting at. I think you're going from 72% to 94% impervious. And so how are you managing that stormwater?
So we'll work with Tony.
Because it's a little,
on-
so this is what's always tough is that it's related to site, landscape, and architecture. And so
Sure.
it would be good to find that out. Maybe not right now, I don't want to
Sure.
interrupt you, but just to say that I think what Brian's talking about, visually it would be really nice. I think that it would distinguish the project on day one.
Mhm.
I think it would add value to the project, and it potentially could also save your client money with their stormwater requirement. So just,
It's worth investigating.
Sure, sure. And we have considered like true green roofs throughout the process. And Tony has, I mean, he's done the calculations, and the plan is, we will have stormwater collection in that lowest level of the hotel or below.
Right.
Slab the parking to collect.
I don't think we're
and-
concerned that you're not meeting the requirement.
Sure.
It's more that, have you explored another way to meet the requirement that could benefit
It doesn't have to
everyone,
be,
including.
it wouldn't have to be all roofs. It just seems to me you've got a couple roofs where you've got guests looking out on the flat roof area, and those would be, I think that would be an amenity that would
Okay.
be worth looking at. So
Noted.
in our guidelines, I think we encourage it.
Sure.
It's a I can't remember the language right now, but it's encouraged, but not required. So I'm encouraging.
Understood. Got it.
Yeah, and just we're not concerned that you're not meeting the requirement.
Gotcha.
It's more.
I'm
of a promise.
encouraging.
Yeah, understood.
I'm wondering if we might want to come back to that, because Kate and Stephen Lee beat up one of our applicants pretty hard over coming to the final review with equal or less in terms of like benefits that a hotel's supposed to bring. And it seems like we're not being very consistent. We're being very polite and respectful to him, whereas we really beat up somebody.
Well, I think we clarified the encourage and what you can and can't do since then. So it's,
I
you can't
understand, but
arbitrarily,
we
you know.
almost denied a project for coming to us with the same amount. So it's like, seems like we need to develop some consistency, like.
yeah, and I think since
Because I'm not
that,
seeing,
since
since the
that, we
hotel,
did clarify that it's encouraged, it's not required. So you can't arbitrarily have that hanging over someone's head just because you want it.
I understand, but we had a long discussion about, we are now the gatekeeper for hotel approvals. And we were all here, right? And so one of the requirements is the hotel is supposed to show some benefits, right?
Which is
and
why we have
so-
the benefits table.
Yeah, and so we had a long discussion about how those benefits show up in terms of sustainability or the public realm or all that. And I think we should circle back and revisit that conversation on this project, just to develop some consistencies as we review hotels. Does that
And
make
Yeah.
sense?
And what Jeremy's saying is that we have circled back, we have been instructed by legal, and we're complying with what we've been instructed by legal.
Right, if we want to revisit the public benefits table, that's a different sidetrack. It's not specific to this project or every project, but we do not need to relitigate each project about how you have to go above and beyond what the minimum requirements are. If we want to revisit as staff and a city, public benefits table and those requirements in order to bypass council, then we could do that. But I do not, my understanding is very different than yours. I do not believe we need to be telling them they have to go above and beyond what's required.
I thought there was kind of a consensus on the board here that in terms of design, that a hotel applicant should show up with more than just meeting the standards, right? I thought that was, our takeaway was, yes, we can't like point to something, say you gotta show up with that, but I thought we were all saying that like, this is a hotel project, you're supposed to show up with more than the minimum. And yes, a lot of it can happen with wages and stuff like that, but what are you showing up in terms of design? So,
And we are, honestly, I think this is a good project to talk about that. As I think Clay's presentation showed, you guys have done a ton of work from what we saw originally.
well, I didn't, yeah, I don't, well, by design, I meant like a green roof, because we spent a lot of time badgering somebody to include one.
We did.
Yeah.
One of the issues that we realized in that process is that our guidelines give us the tools to require certain things of the architecture that they don't currently give us to require of sustainable and site design. Is that our guidelines are not
okay.
as robust in that specific area. And that is one of the issues that we want to address. We can't do a complete overhaul of the guidelines of the UDO, but we do want to have a better set of guidelines, especially for hotel projects, for site and specific. So you're right, that is our sense, but we currently don't have the legal tools to require that of an applicant. We can suggest, we can encourage, we can cajole, we can do all kinds of things, but we can't require.
And we can continue to bring it up, and to be fair, I haven't badgered anyone. That's language that I don't appreciate. I have brought up the same thing every single time, depending on the project. Some projects it's just simply not appropriate, or it's not a good solution. For a project like this, I think there's a lot of opportunity here that everyone gets something out of. And so I think bringing it up is valid. And I never stated that I would vote against a project because it didn't include it. So that's important to just state.
Okay.
I appreciate the dialogue, though, I do. On the exterior, I think you've seen how it has evolved. One thing we did try and do here in response to some comments is create more of a traditional base, middle, top language. So we dropped the brick down a level, create that top band, and added a more distinctive cornice element up there to sort of cap the building. And we also have simplified a little bit the sort of coffering with the brick, and have added some stack bond there to sort of differentiate the horizontal and the vertical, add a little more interest with it. We also felt that the previous building was awfully dark with the color scheme, and so in the center area, we've lightened up what is the ephes color there, and have some accent panels and reveals in there. We are definitely not a prototype exterior design, but what we've done with the sort of offset windows in the panels is sort of a reflection of what they do as a brand. The biggest change we've probably made is at the street wall. We changed, again, the material palette here. We lightened it up a bit. And we've added obviously the canopy over where the bistro is. We show signage in these renderings, but we understand that that's not, that's all a separate process, and we go through. What we're just trying to identify is that since we want public to feel welcome in the bistro, even if they're not a hotel guest, that we may have to have some signage there. It may have to have a name identifier separate from the hotel brand. And so that's what we are showing in the rendering. But so we have the canopy there, and then the continuous band, just to sort of add some interest and continuity along the street facade. The planners, as we've talked about, we've added, we'll certainly work with Tony on what we can do there to maximize benefit there. This is obviously what you see there primarily is the bistro entrance. Here, immediately below where it has the courtyard signage, is the pedestrian entry into, you get back into the hotel, to the lobby, the main vestibule. And we opened that. It used to be more of sort of a storefront entry. It's kind of small, narrow. This opens it up a little bit for a couple reasons. One, just sort of now makes it all, for vehicular traffic, less likelihood that they're going to be driving by and sort of miss what might be happening or where they want to turn, which could create a dangerous situation on the street. Also just makes that sort of sidewalk entrance, as come in a little more friendly. People who might be coming in with luggage or whatever, if they're being dropped off.
That rendering shows 4 trees, but the site plan shows 3.
We would obviously, we'd have to defer to,
Which one's right?
I would defer to Tony's.
Are you going to present your plans, or should we have that discussion now? One is that, like, the 4 trees look great in this rendering, but we're only getting 3. And then we're not getting any trees to the west end. And I know it bleeds off the property, but I'm just wondering, I didn't see the required number, and whether the required was 3 and we're providing 3, or.
I'm Tony Hauser with WSP. The requirement is 3. It was on the landscape plan. You should have seen it. It was submitted. At any rate, the tree grates aren't shown accurately in this rendering. The tree grates will be 4 feet by 12 feet in length, and because of some of the ramp transitions that have to happen, for instance, at the entrance to the bistro, as well as the entrance there under the Courtyard by Marriott sign, those tree grates would fall in a ramped section, so we can't get more than 3. We originally tried to get 4, which is what's shown here, and the coordination between myself and Bill and Chris didn't catch that.
So the only planting requirement in this whole project are the 3
That's
street
correct.
trees? And that's all you're providing, are 3 street trees?
Well, as far as trees go, everything else will be fee in lieu for the tree canopy requirement. And then the areas, the planters in front of the bistro entrance, they're not large enough to have trees, and they're shaded, right? So they'll be shade tolerant native plant material. Now, the comment that you made earlier about the sidewalk to the east or the right in this picture, by eliminating that, we can probably expand that planter and probably get a tree in there. I'm not certain. We'll take a look at it. But that's a very good point, and one that we had not coordinated closely on, because the transition that will have to happen in order to make the bistro entrance accessible will probably happen across that piece of walk that's coming out there, so it probably makes sense to eliminate it.
And you're providing, although you're meeting the requirement of the number, you've upsized the trees though, correct?
That's the plan, yeah, is to increase the caliper of those trees, yeah. We really tried 4, but at the moment, the grading doesn't look like it will allow it. I'm sorry?
I see there was like a call for like Zelkova trees. But they were.
We did call Zelkova, but we'll be changing those because we've gotten information from the city forester that's basically discouraging the use of those in downtown
Can we
anymore.
use like some kind of native pollinator? Perhaps?
Say again?
Can we use like a native pollinator tree?
We will use something native. I haven't selected that yet. So we'll use something that's urban tolerant and native.
So what are our thoughts on, so we have a 10-foot sidewalk, we want wide sidewalks, but then we see planters parked there, which are nice, because it's basically hiding a bit of the foundation there below the storefront. But like, I guess we're okay losing some of our 10-foot sidewalk there, right?
No, that doesn't affect the 10-foot width.
The plant?
No, some of this is a little bit of, artistic license and things. Yeah, we have to work with Tony exactly what we have there and what we can work. I mean, it would be our intent to do anything we can, certainly to solve it against the building. The problem is we deal with the build to,
But technically, we can't lose any of the 10-foot width.
Yeah, we wouldn't not lose it.
So you may not be able to fit
We may
those
not have
planters.
those.
Okay, I got you.
Sort of,
Those are
yeah, potted.
While we're looking at that, the last bay to the right of that 3-bay storefront at the bistro, the sill on the storefront on the bay to the right is like 6 inches higher. They might have a different view, but if you were to zoom in on that, why is that one bay like,
I think it's just what you're seeing is happening inside.
it shows up on the other drawings too. I couldn't figure out, like if you were to go to your,
The elevation,
yeah, your elevations.
I don't.
So you're not intentionally
No, we
pulling
can,
the-
that could be a holdover from, in the model from when grades
Okay.
were different or something like that. We were trying to be sensitive to what the sidewalk, but no, if we can accommodate, we'd lower that
Okay,
and maximize that storefront.
I have a question about the planters. Whether you use the ones along the front there or just the built-in ones. Hopefully we can expand that other one.
Mm-hmm.
If we do, I see right now they're pretty symmetrical, right? They bank the entrance. I think it's okay to keep the one narrow one against the building and have that other one be larger. I don't think they have to match. So
Sure.
I think there was a comment about just having one larger one. I think you could still have that one, have your nice entry, and then a larger one.
And the larger one on the
Yeah.
right, which Tony said might allow now an extra tree,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Yeah.
I think that could be nice.
Uh-huh.
And then I would also ask if those will be irrigated or to consider that only because it's hard to get them watered under there. And
Yeah.
that is usually something that doesn't happen. And if we were reviewing something that was just a mulch bed, we would all be not approving that. So just to say that if that's possible, I think that would be really important to find a way to do that. And that's just coordination during construction for sleeving and things like that.
Yeah.
Hard to do after the fact, easier to do
Mhm.
in the design. And then I could see with that larger planter and that smaller planter, you have a lot of different light zones. And I heard Tony say native plantings, you could really represent landscapes here in the mountains. That could be really beautiful and a nice amenity there.
Can you go to the corner view, if you don't mind? Looking at the bistro entrance, that little, right there, and zoom in there. Okay, that little piece, so as the two-story piece comes out, there's this little leftover piece between the main facade and that two-story piece. And it's just hitting me odd. So first of all, general comment, I think this project has come a long way. I'm in favor of approving this today. I appreciate a lot of the moves you've made. I think the building is more consistent. I think the corner works better. I think the entrances work better. The detailing makes a lot more sense to me. So I like a lot of the pieces. I just wanted to nitpick a little bit. So that little piece, it doesn't really, it's its own thing. It's not really.
Talking about you wanting it to wrap?
No, I don't want it to wrap. I think that
It's like 3 feet.
I think it should be glass. I mean, so when I'm looking at the piece below, it looks like so to me, it looks like you've taken something and you've pulled it away from the building, and as you pull it away from the building, what is that piece that's in between it, right? And below it's glass, and that makes sense to me. But above it's like, well, it's kind of the gray stuff, but the mullions don't match. They match one side, but not the other. It's like it's this in-between thing. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, and so that's a valid point. Mullions should match, and that be certainly something I think we just need to get cleaned up. So architecturally, and actually I can show you on the other end, because we did something
the other end
similar here.
Like,
And
let's
what
see,
we did,
that one makes sense to
yeah,
me.
so it's recessed slightly. We changed the material just to create a visual break. I mean, so that was our intent. I appreciate if it's not coming across to you, especially
Then
on
maybe like that one, this one makes sense to me because then it feels like a thing, and then you've got that little piece that pulls in between, but it's not trying to be either thing. it's its own thing. I think it's because on the other side, it's glass with brick above and below. The mullions don't quite match. It's just hitting my eye weird.
I got it. I understand.
So it's like if it was all glass, it would be one thing. If it was all brick, it would be one thing.
Yeah.
It's inconsistent
Sure.
with the rest of your detailing because you've honestly worked really hard to detail this thing
Yeah.
from what we saw last time.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think, so, certainly on that lower level, one thing we did try and do was open up, add more storefront to create a better connection in interior to exterior. So certainly on the ground floor, that's why we carried that storefront around the corner. And I see what you're saying on the top, if that was brick, or maybe we bring it all the way down and then we can sacrifice that small amount of storefront.
Or if it's glass. I think you would want to look at it both ways.
Yeah.
I like the consistency of what you've done on the one side, but one of the things that this building was fighting before was it had a lot of little kind of Old West pastiche kind of details that were kind of glommed on. And this one feels a lot more integrated, where it's, there's a consistency to the detailing of when things turn, and that one little piece is less consistent than some of the other stuff you've been doing. So for me, it's, what you did on the other side makes sense, and you could do the same thing on this side where the brick comes all the way down, or the glass goes all the way up. I don't know.
I see what you're saying.
Since we're talking about this part, this is the only part that I wanted to talk about. Can we look at this head-on, please?
Yeah,
The,
sure.
The view head-on. So
I wanted to fight with you about this. This is perfect.
My concern here is you have the widest piers in the entire building
Coming
are
down on.
down below, near
Narrow.
where they're closest to the pedestrian, and then they're held up by the thinnest piers in the entire building. So when I'm looking at this on my screen, I'm doing this, and if I cover the bottom part, it's one building. If I cover the top part, it's a different building. And so what you said about opening up that bottom part, it's very evident, and it's very successful, and it looks great. The entrance, kudos to you guys. The entrance is way better. It is so much more appealing, so much more welcoming. I appreciate that that you were able to make it fully accessible. That was a concern when we met last time. The flow of that first floor, the entrance from the car drop-off, everything just works better. Everything looks better, feels better. This part doesn't. When I look at this, what I would want to do is I'm assuming that the black band and what are the piers, the lower piers? What's the material?
So right now, we've got it shown as sort of a metal, like an ACM kind of thing.
That's what it reads as. Same as the
As band, as the canopy, yeah.
Yeah. So my reaction is to make this like the smaller piece that comes out, make that mostly that metal. So it starts to lighten things up and starts to tie that together. You have the pier on the end doesn't come down. There's just something about that whole piece using the brick there that doesn't quite feel right, or at least so much brick. Does that make sense?
Are you talking on that very far left side?
Well,
or?
no, that whole front two-story piece. All the brick on that piece, to me, doesn't really, it ties things better than the previous version. When you look at the palette, when I just sort of squint at it and look at the palette and the colors and the materials, it works better than the previous versions we've seen. But, like I said, because it's the widest pier, close to the pedestrian experience, and supported by the thinnest pier, that has, they're just two different languages. And the top language of that two-story piece it's not that it doesn't fit with the language of the main building, but it is different, right? So to my eye, it kind of stands out a little bit more than I would want it to.
But I like the corner. Can you go to the corner looking up at Up at, no, not the main entrance corner, the other.
From the
other
back,
side. Yeah,
from the-
yeah, that piece right there. See, that's where the brick is working for me. If you changed all that to the metal.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
I don't
So,
think it's the brick, but maybe the color of the brick. Like, does that brick have to be the same as the rest of the building?
The main building?
Or
Maybe
could,
it's the
or
dark-
could it come down? For example, where, you know, some of these piers do come down, and yeah, we're sacrificing a little bit of that, of the storefront, but, you know, maybe you make them a little bit narrower and then bring them down. Because they are the widest piers on the project.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So I will say, it doesn't necessarily mean we were successful, but I think in some of the other feedback, Chris from our office was here for the other presentations. He's getting married Saturday, so his mind is elsewhere.
congratulations.
So I think there had been some discussion about whether that front element, it either needed to be sort of more its own thing, or it needed to just sort of blend it, match. And so what we tried to do was sort of use the same palette, but treat it in a much more sort of contemporary massing and forms and things like that. That was what we were trying to do. So that's where we go. It's the same brick, but we've gone stack bond. It's a little more blocky, a little less traditional in the articulation of the masonry, things like that.
Robin's saying, which I like, if you took the brick that we've got there and just wrapped it and then came down on the ends and everything in between was the metal. So it's just a brick U.
Yeah, go to the slide 26 or page 20.
With the leg on the right.
No, the
touch
the one where
ground.
it's more front on, the one where it's more facing.
Down
that
this one.
Yeah, so the one on the left and the one on the right could be brick making an upside down U.
I see what you're saying.
And then everything in between is the store, that would be.
I think that would be fantastic,
Yeah.
because you're still talking the same language, but you're not, you don't have that big pier floating on top. Or even if you took the thinner pier and continued it up in front of the brick, you know what I mean? So there's
Sure, it's a pilaster kind of thing.
It's just
Yeah.
that right now it's a flat pier on top of a spindle.
I was thinking something sort of opposite to that, is if we maintained the brick pier coming all the way down.
I think that's what.
That wasn't you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
any of these.
Clay looked at it.
I think any of these start to address what I'm talking about. It's just, it will no longer be a flat pier on top of a spindle.
And then maybe whatever you decide to do with that pier can help solve that little weird issue.
The one
Yeah.
on the other side from the entrance.
Because then you can return it.
Because then you can return whatever it is you're doing. What I'm saying is I really like looking up at the car entrance, that piece right there with that brick, that looks really good. I do see, I wanted to fight with Ricardo, but he's right, unfortunately. But there's a couple of different ways that you can solve that, I think, that would look really good. Anyway, keep going, more.
Sure.
More.
Okay.
Just,
Got it.
You've done good stuff,
Got it.
Actually, if you
take
go
it all
back to
away.
that corner view again.
These,
Looking at the bistro.
Looking at the bistro.
Corner.
Okay.
It looks like your structural is not at all where your architecture is, because in your building sections, it's very schematic. Like right where the H in Haywood is, that, you got a mullion underneath that. It's like that whole 4-story building spans across from this robust corner where that lady's leaning against that. And then that building behind kind of spans across. There's no evidence of any structure of what holds up all
columns, there will be columns interior along that whole face. So the face, so the structure of the main guest room tower, there will be structural going all the way. So there will be columns dropped in that.
Well, they're showing a muntin between two pieces of glass under the H. I'm guessing you're going to end up with a column there.
It's possible. Yes. Well, I mean, if we can bring that in to maintain that storefront, we'd probably pull that back in.
I mean,
a few feet.
It's where the.
Yeah, the structure's going to be post-tension slab up through podium level. So we can span probably close to 30 feet up there. We can span a pretty significant distance. And so we won't have to drop a column there per se.
Well, there was more of a comment about making sure we are seeing
What
the
you're gonna
final
get?
design.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, is it gonna change once structural digs a little bit
Gotcha.
deeper?
Understood.
I mean, so that brings us back to what Brian started with, is I think the mechanism is staff level review at some point to say, we think that this has changed enough where it has to come back. I don't think it's just one arbitrary. It's like, okay, this design has changed enough where it needs to come back.
Right.
I think we're relying at this point on staff to do that.
But Will and Clay have looked at this enough with us, and we've already talked about enough stuff that I think they have enough material that they can go, okay, that window got 3 inches narrower all the way around the building.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually,
That-
it's not like if you squint at it, it looks like pretty much the same, then you feel good
But
about
suddenly,
it.
but suddenly you got a column.
Wiggle room. We don't measure.
You got a
every other
column, you got a column in there.
Right.
Where one was not shown before, something, the parapet.
Where your parapet's 10 feet tall.
10 feet
Right.
taller.
Right.
Sometimes in the past, we'll email it to the chair and co-chair and just say, hey, what do you guys think of this? This is a minor change and it doesn't seem material, and that's a good way to kind of check in, or come back for an informal review sometimes. Or if it's such a big change that we're like, you need to come back through for like that review, then we can do that too. But yeah, we have our eyes out for any of those major changes, and if you want to make any of these, design changes a condition of the approval, that might be a good way to encapsulate it.
Well, before we open up for public comment, are there any additional
Yeah.
questions for the applicant?
I just have one other comment. I don't want to detract from increasing the size of the planters, but I'm curious if, when you do that, and hopefully you can fit a tree, if there's a possibility to maybe create some outdoor seating space for the bistro to just further, activate, but also hopefully discourage, loitering somehow.
Sure.
It would be great to continue to activate the street in any way.
Well, if those planters, the portable planters weren't there, they could park tables all along that storefront.
Right, but I don't want to detract from the planters. I'm hoping that maybe there's like a compromise or
Sure.
something.
Could street seating, can that go into the 10-foot?
I think you have to have a
Sidewalk or-
special permission. I don't think you're.
Yeah.
You need to leave 6-foot clear sidewalk,
But it could,
through separate application
okay.
process, there's, in fact,
Okay.
there's a list you may
Okay.
pull that has all the details for outdoor dining.
Sure.
So I'm going to have to leave here shortly, so for another 2 more meetings. So.
One more question. When folks are coming home after eating dinner out, they're having to figure out, you enter to get back in the hotel by following a car essentially, and that's one of my big bugaboos, is this has got a bit of a suburban kind of feel to it, because the
They can come
main
through the
portal
bistro.
to draw folks in is talking about the car first and the people second. If you went to the flat-on view, it seems like you could just celebrate the pedestrian open a little bit more with an awning or some sort of softening of that to bring attention to what hopefully is more important, which is where people enter.
Sure,
Rather
sure.
than where the cars.
Yeah, so you're talking about the pedestrian entry into the hotel, back to the vestibule?
Well, right where it says courtyard by the
Yeah.
area.
Right
Okay.
below the sign.
Yeah, in that zone, really celebrate that this building is about the people, not about the cars.
You got it. Sure.
And the good thing is it's not apparent in these drawings, and I didn't notice it first, but you are looking straight in to the vestibule.
To the vestibule,
So,
yep.
it's not apparent from this drawing, but hopefully from a pedestrian experience with a little bit of celebration to call attention to this is where people enter the building.
Sure.
That you are, and of course you're being drawn through a motor court, But eventually, you're gonna kind of see the doors, and hopefully those will draw you through that kind of harsh car
Sure,
environment.
sure.
Great. I'm going to open up for public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment?
Do we need to talk about the site?
We can come back. I just want to. Okay, there's no one that wants to speak from the public comment. Is there any additional discussion? Site discussion?
No, I was just, Tony was gonna, or I think you referenced Tony to talk about the stormwater.
Stormwater is being managed by a vault in the parking deck that has cartridge-type filters, so detention and treatment is provided through that system.
There's a lot of opportunities on this project to incorporate a green roof to manage that small amount of additional impervious surface. It's a great project to explore that. Did you do that?
I did not. That's more of an architectural element. I mean, I would work with them to determine the decrease in detention that would go along with that. But that's definitely something that they've considered, and I think we'll consider more after this discussion that we've had here this morning.
Yeah, I think you all will be surprised at how that is just going to really elevate this project and also reduce costs. And also, just from previous experience, the sooner you evaluate that and consider it in the design, the easier it is to implement, and you can avoid challenges down the road by just making sure the structure can hold an ideal system. All those things can be worked out in schematic design development and make it easier. So just if there is a will for that, then I would just encourage you to start sooner rather than later. And also, one clarification, I saw the link in the TRC from Stormwater, and it listed it referenced the guide for stormwater for NCDEQ, and its green roofs are incorrectly listed as a secondary control measure, and they're listed as a rule as a primary stormwater control measure, so you do not need a secondary device or system for that. So that is something that we need to get our staff up to speed on in stormwater, just to make sure they're sharing information that we're asking for something, and then you all are referencing something that doesn't match what we're asking for, and so just putting that out.
This committee is the one that found that. When we communicated with DEQ about it, we noticed that difference, and they're correcting it now.
Yeah. Way to go, Asheville.
That's right. I'm sure the legislature will
The
shut us down.
state's going to celebrate you.
Any further questions for Tony? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So for conditions, I have reworked the planter walk at the bistro entrance to potentially enlarge the planter. Is that right? That's condition 1. Condition 2 would be to explore coordinating the second-story pier width with the first-story column width of that front element. Is that the correct way to say that?
Yeah, I was going to say vertical integration, design integration.
Vertical design integration, thank you. I'll try to say that again. And the final is with that, coordinate that second-story connection piece over the canopy with that exploration. Any further? And then we did encourage, I don't know that that's a condition, but we are encouraging potential sustainable stormwater control measures such as green roofs where applicable.
Maybe I missed it. Is anybody else supporting this idea of celebrating the pedestrians portal?
He had that in.
Okay, I didn't follow the language, but if that's what he was trying to do, that's great.
Yeah, and I think they could also do that with, there's some paving things and stuff. I think it would be, when they're looking at this front piece, that is the most important element in the building, and I think it's going to be an inclusive exploration. Okay? All right. I'm going to make a recommendation unless anybody objects. Wonderful. I move to recommend approval of the Courtyard Hotel project as presented based on the site plans, elevations, and materials submitted and the discussions heard during this review. I find that the project meets the intent of the downtown design guidelines subject to the following conditions. One, that the design team explore reworking the right side planter walk at the bistro entrance. Two, that the designer work to reduce and coordinate and the vertical integration of the second story pier width with the first story pier width of the front design element. Ricardo, good? Okay. With that, we'll also coordinate that second story connection of the same piece over the front bistro canopy, as well as the pedestrian entrance.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Can we have just a, oh, second.
Yep, we have a motion and a second. Is there, do you have any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think the design's come a long way, and I think it's way better. I think you're probably happier with it too. And I just want to go back to this notion of this being a hotel. And Kate, I think you misunderstood when I said Badger. What I meant to say was we seemed very insistent that the previous applicant, because they were bringing a hotel, bring more than a design that met the design guidelines, bring something else. And I bought into that. I was like, yes, you're right. You can't just meet the design guidelines. It's a hotel, and we're a step where we are asking folks that are bringing a hotel to bring more than something that just meets the guidelines. So I'm very supportive of the design, but I'm not supportive that it's just a design. I'm not going to vote in favor because that's all it is. It's just a hotel design that meets our guidelines. And without the sustainable elements, stormwater elements, higher design elements, or anything else that you've offered, you're just kind of bringing in a compliant project. So just want to be clear.
And respectfully, I disagree 100%. In the sense that I don't think we are, as a body, can legally arbitrarily decide to bring more. That's called a conditional zoning. And that's not what our purpose is. But respectfully.
Well, we just had a whole discussion about very nuanced things, like adding more brick and stuff. And so I'm just saying, like, where's the other pieces? Where's the community benefits to this? And it seems like we just need to be a little bit more consistent.
And I feel like if there's desire to increase the community benefits with respect to requiring or encouraging things that are not currently in the design guidelines, then we amend the community benefit table. That's the purpose of that table. But
I hear you.
in any event, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
The ayes have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1. Thank you so much for your time and for the work that you've done. That's the end of our agenda.
Adjourn?
Is there a motion to adjourn? Because I've got 2 more meetings to go to.
I move we adjourn. Second.
Second. Sorry? We haven't, sorry?
We haven't voted. What you got?
No, I don't have.
Okay. Do we have to vote to adjourn?
Close your laptop if you want to leave.
Not really? Okay.
Perfect.